It was supposed to be a normal weekend, family barbecue. Laughter, love, and togetherness. But by Monday morning, no one from the Rusty family was answering their phones. And when police entered their quiet suburban home, they walked into a nightmare. What happened inside that house shocked the nation. This is the heartbreaking investigation into the case of Russell Rusty and his family. A tale of trust, betrayal, and a mystery darker than anyone imagined. Tucked away in the quiet town of Ridgewood, Oregon, nestled among pine trees and winding cul-de-sacs, lived a family that seemed on the surface like the American ideal. The Rustys were known by nearly everyone in the neighborhood, friendly, polite, always the first to wave or offer a helping hand. But on one fateful weekend in July of 2023, all of that changed. Russell Rusty was 42 years old, a man who many described as dependable, conservative, and extremely private. He worked as a mid-level accountant at a small but respected local firm, Harding & Barnes. Russell was one of those guys who just did his job, wasn't flashy, didn't gossip, didn't go out for drinks, but he never missed a deadline. That was him reliable. Russell commuted daily, kept to himself, but was never seen as cold. He brought in donuts on Fridays, remembered birthdays, and was always home by 6. Russ loved his family. His wife, Melanie Rusty, was 39 and a second-grade teacher at Ridgewood Elementary, described by colleagues as warm, nurturing, and immensely patient. Melanie had taught for nearly a decade. She had this gift, the kind that makes kids feel safe and parents feel lucky. She loved Russell, she adored her kids, and she loved being a mom. The couple had been married 15 years. They met in college. While Russell majored in finance, Melanie studied early childhood development. They moved to Ridgewood 2 years after graduation. Ava, 12, was the brainy, artistic child. She loved to draw and had dreams of becoming a graphic novelist. Her younger brother Mason, just 9, was full of energy, a soccer lover who never went anywhere without his red baseball cap. The Rustys were well known, involved in the community. Every Sunday they sat in the third row at Ridgewood Methodist Church. Every Halloween they handed out full-size candy bars, a model family. But behind that picture-perfect image, there were signs. Not loud, not alarming, but small cracks. Neighbor Carol Dempsey had seen Melanie out watering the lawn, and some days she just looked drained. Russell and his friend used to go fishing. He started canceling a lot, said he was busy with work. But it felt like more than that. There were reports of stress, finances tightening. Melanie had hinted to a coworker about cutting back on things. But no one thought much of it. On July 14th, 2023, a Friday, the Rustys hosted a barbecue at their home. Nothing fancy. Just a few neighbors, some cousins, and Russell's sister Hannah. Hannah felt everything normal. Eva showed her a painting she did. Mason kept running around with the dog. Melanie made her famous deviled eggs. The gathering ended around 9:30 p.m. Everyone thanked them. Hugs were exchanged. It was an ordinary summer night. Melanie texted Hannah at 10:12, said, "Thanks for coming. Love you." That was the last time Hannah ever heard from her. Over the next 48 hours, there was no sign of the Rustys, no social media posts. Phones went straight to voicemail. Monday morning in Ridgewood, Oregon, for most it was just another day. But for Melanie Rusty's co-workers, something was already off. Melanie was always early. Her classroom door was always open by 7:15. Her desk, neatly organized, the coffee pot just finishing its morning brew. But on July 17th, 2023, her classroom was dark. Melanie wasn't the only one missing. Vaught and Mason Rusty, aged 12 and 9, also failed to report to school. The front office at Ridgewood Elementary tried calling repeatedly. It was extremely unusual. Maloney never missed school without notice. They called, then called again. Nothing. Russell hadn't shown up either, nor had he called in. By noon, multiple people had tried contacting the Rustys. Friends, family, co-workers. Silence. But it was Russell's sister, Hannah Rusty, who received the most chilling communication. Text message sent at 3:11 a.m. Simple, devastating. "I'm sorry for everything. Tell Mom I love her." According to Hannah Rusty, she woke up to that message and she just froze. It didn't feel real. She tried calling him back, straight to voicemail. She called Melanie. Nothing. She just knew something was wrong. At 2:08 p.m., concerned Hannah drove to the Rusty home on Monday afternoon. The blinds were drawn. The front door was locked. The car was still in the driveway. She knocked. No answer. She looked through the windows. What she saw froze her in place. The living room was untouched, but the hallway light was on. And the dog Max was just pacing, whining, barked frantically inside. That's when she called 911. 911 call was, "Hi, I'm at my brother's house. No one's answering the door, but their car's here. Their dog is inside. I'm worried something's really wrong." Officers from the Ridgewood PD arrived at 2:46 p.m. The home was silent. No movement, no sounds, except the scratching of the dog. Ridgewood PD responding to a wellness check, no signs of entry, requesting permission to breach. Police entered the Rusty home at approximately 4:48 p.m. on July 17th. Inside, the house was undisturbed. Dishes in the sink, a book left open on the living room sofa. As they moved toward the hallway, everything changed. The bodies of Melanie, Ava, and Mason Rusty were found in their bedrooms. All three appeared to have died in their sleep, no visible trauma, no signs of a struggle, according to police officer. It was quiet, too quiet, like time had just stopped. They found Melanie first, then the kids. They looked peaceful, but you could feel it, something was terribly wrong. Toxicology and autopsy results would take weeks. But initially, police ruled out carbon monoxide. There were no weapons, no forced entry, no signs of robbery. Russell Rusty was nowhere to be found. His cell phone was off. His wallet was missing. No car had left the property. And there was no goodbye note. It was the first big question. Did he run? Was he taken? Or was he responsible? Inside the home, Russell's side of the bed was made. His clothes for work still hung in the closet, yet his personal laptop was gone. Tech forensics couldn't trace any recent logins, but someone had disconnected the router around 3:15 a.m. Just after the time the text was sent, investigators launched multiple simultaneous efforts, searching local hospitals, tracking credit card activity, checking surveillance cameras along highways. Police flagged his license plate, put out a statewide bolo, but there was nothing, no sightings. It was like he had vanished. The community watched in horror. Some were quick to blame Russell. Others clung to the hope that he'd been taken to. Local resident couldn't imagine Russell hurting his family, but he was missing in that text. It just didn't sit right. The story exploded. News outlets swarmed the quiet Ridgewood neighborhood. The Rusty home became a media focal point. Within 24 hours, the case had national attention. A tragic mystery unfolding in Ridgewood tonight as the bodies of a mother and two children are discovered, and the father, Russell Rusty, is missing. Headlines branded Russell everything from grieving husband to prime suspect. While autopsy reports were pending, the funerals for Melanie, Ava, and Mason were held quietly closed casket. Russell's chair at the front row remained empty. 3 lives stolen, 1 man missing, and an entire town left with more questions than answers. As the community reeled from the gruesome discovery inside the Rusty home, the investigation shifted into overdrive. Detectives knew one thing. Russell Rusty was no longer at the house, and he might be the key to everything. Inside the house, Melanie, Ava, and Mason lay dead. No signs of forced entry, no struggle. All 3 found in their beds, as if they'd been taken by surprise in their sleep. And Russell, gone, without a trace. But not for long, just hours before his family was discovered. Russell was spotted withdrawing $3,000 in cash from a 24-hour ATM on Maple and 7th Street. He looked calm, boot up. Head down, forensic financial analysts checked his accounts. That withdrawal had emptied his primary checking. Didn't just vanish, he cleaned out what he had left. Soon, detectives uncovered secrets Russell had kept buried from everyone, including his wife. Russell had been gambling for over 2 years. Online poker sites, cryptocurrency casinos, even illegal underground card games in Portland. Detective found out he'd racked up over $80,000 in gambling debt. That wasn't just poor judgment, it was desperation. He took out payday loans, borrowed from coworkers, maxed out every credit card under Melanie's name, all without her knowing. 3 weeks before the murders, Russell applied for a $500,000 life insurance policy. The beneficiary, himself listed as the spouse of the insured, Melanie Rusty. But investigators now saw it differently. Was it financial security, or was it motive? They began crafting a theory. Russell had planned a murder-suicide. Eliminate the debt, collect the payout, escape. The investigators mapped out Russell's final 48 hours before the murders. He sent his sister that cryptic text. "I'm sorry for everything. Tell Mom I love her." It would become the last digital breadcrumb. Hannah thought it was a suicide note, but she never imagined not like this. From there, Russell's phone went dark. But traffic cam footage showed a man matching his description heading southbound on I-5, 4:02 a.m. That was all they had. Desperate for leads, investigators turned to Russell's digital footprint. Emails, search history, cloud backups. They found chilling searches. Ones that suggested Russell had been planning something for weeks, and then they found it. A document titled Plan B.txt hidden in a buried folder on his laptop. Password protected, but cracked. With this new evidence, a psychological profile began to form. Russell Rusty wasn't just desperate, he may have been unraveling. Russell likely felt cornered. Financial ruin, fear of shame, a fractured identity. In his mind, ending it all was the solution. But one question still lingered. If he planned to die with them, why was he still missing? The case was now national. The FBI stepped in, airports, bus stations, and border checkpoints all placed on alert. FBI believed Russell may have crossed into Canada or boarded a flight under an alias. But even with all that Rusty was a ghost. No new transactions, no calls, no sightings, just theories. The deeper the investigators looked, the darker the image became. A man once praised for his devotion to family, now suspected of killing them. But without Russell alive or dead, the truth remained just out of reach. But that was about to change. By Tuesday morning, July 18, 2023, the once quiet town of Ridgewood, Oregon, had become the epicenter of a national tragedy. News broke that Melanie Rusty and her 2 children were found dead in their home, and that Russell Rusty was missing. The reaction was immediate. Melanie Rusty, a respected school teacher at Ridgewood Elementary, was beloved by her students and peers. Her classroom, now filled with cards and flowers from grieving students, sat in eerie silence. As the community tried to process the loss, whispers grew louder about what might have happened. And one question dominated every conversation. Where was Russell? The media frenzy was instant. Local news stations were first on the scene. But by Wednesday, national outlets like CNN, Dateline, and even true crime podcasts began to circle. Accountant vanishes after family slain, that was the headline, plastered everywhere. Reddit threads speculated endlessly. Was he kidnapped? On the run? Dead by suicide? Within 72 hours, the Rusty tragedy had turned into a media spectacle. Multiple friends began to paint a picture that Russell hadn't been himself for months, that he was distant, agitated, and paranoid. And then there was the email. One of Russell's former co-workers came forward with an email sent by Russell weeks before the tragedy. It wasn't addressed to anyone in particular. Just a strange message buried in the body of a forwarded joke email, but it contained that chilling line. Investigators returned to the Rusty house. In the attic, they found 2 things: a set of journals and a revolver. Theories divided the community. Some believed Russell was a victim too, that someone else had come after the family. Others were convinced he was responsible. The manhunt continued. Billboards went up. Have you seen Russell Rusty? Tips flooded in from 3 states, but each one turned into another dead end. True crime communities took over. TikToks with timelines. YouTube breakdowns. Everyone had a theory. The facts were few and far between. Through the noise, one thing remained constant. The tragedy of 3 lives lost. Melanie, Ava, and Mason, innocent, kind, deeply loved, now became the symbols of a mystery that only deepened with time. As the days turned into weeks, Russell Rusty's face was everywhere on TV, on posters, in the minds of a grieving community. But what they didn't know was that a new lead was about to shift the entire investigation. For nearly 3 weeks, Russell Rusty had vanished without a trace. Ridgewood was paralyzed in fear and confusion. Was he a grieving father on the run, or a cold-blooded killer hiding in plain sight? Hundreds of tips came in, Most were dead ends. But on August 5th, 2023, a tipster called from Salem, Oregon, 120 miles from Ridgewood. The call was, "Yeah, I think the guy you're looking for, Russell Rusty. I saw him. He's been renting a storage unit next to mine. Real quiet, keeps to himself. But it's him." Law enforcement swarmed a modest row of storage units just outside the city. Unit 37B, rented under the name Tobias Erickson. Inside, they found a cot, canned food, bottled water, and a man sitting calmly against the wall. It was Russell, alive, unarmed, disheveled, and almost unrecognizable. Russell screamed, "I didn't kill them. I didn't kill them. I didn't kill them." He didn't try to run. No weapon, no anger. Just broken, like someone waiting to be found. Russell was booked into Multnomah County Jail on charges of fleeing law enforcement and was quickly transferred to Ridgewood for questioning. He claimed to have fled out of fear. He told detectives he'd returned from a late-night drive and found his family lifeless. He didn't call 911. He didn't alert anyone. Instead, he emptied a bank account and ran. The storage unit held more than just survival gear. Officers found a notepad covered in paranoid scribblings. Notes like "They're watching me," "Mel knew too much," and "Safe place equals Salem." He had a burner phone with no outgoing calls, no internet use. Just a few cryptic text drafts, never sent, one said. Didn't do it. Look at her emails. The storage unit had no DNA or forensic evidence linking him to the murders. No blood, no weapon, no clothes from the night of the killings. Russell's explanation didn't satisfy everyone. Detectives doubled back, re-interviewed friends, dug deeper into Melanie's work computer, and began exploring a new theory. In court documents, it was revealed that Russell had been prescribed antipsychotic medication 3 months prior, which he reportedly stopped taking weeks before the incident. His mental health struggles added a new layer of ambiguity. Was this a man unraveling, or a manipulator playing the long game? Public opinion fractured. Some rallied behind Russell, others wanted answers and justice. The narrative had changed. Now, the story wasn't just about a missing man. It was about a system struggling to find truth in a tragedy. With Russell now in custody, the case took a dramatic shift. In October of 2024, nearly a year after the brutal deaths of Melanie Rusty and her children, Ava and Mason, Russell Rusty, the man many had already condemned in the court of public opinion, stood trial in an actual courtroom. Prosecutors wasted no time laying out their case, a damning narrative rooted in motive, opportunity, and Russell's suspicious behavior before and after the murders. The prosecution argued that Russell had premeditated the killings, staged the scene to look like a mystery, and ran because he knew the truth would come out. Russell's defense painted a radically different picture, one of a panicked man who discovered a gruesome crime scene, feared no one would believe him, and fled. According to defense, he found them dead. All three. No weapon. No intruder. No help. Just fear. But it was a single sentence that shifted the courtroom's atmosphere. But some questions are still unanswered. Why would Melanie write such a cryptic message? What did she know? Was she afraid of her husband or someone else? As the trial dragged on, the public remained fiercely divided. Was Russell a manipulative killer, or a grieving father caught in the worst nightmare imaginable? Then, just as the jury was beginning deliberations, a twist. It came from a small piece of fabric found in the backyard, initially dismissed as debris. Upon retesting, it revealed partial DNA, but not Russell's. The DNA was from an unidentified male, not in any law enforcement database. But it's definitely not the defendant's. Suddenly, the narrative was no longer certain. Was there someone else involved? Had investigators missed something in the early chaos? Defense attorney asked the court to consider this DNA and what it might mean. Reasonable doubt is not a technicality. It's the foundation of our justice system. Deliberations were suspended. The judge ordered a brief recess to allow for forensic follow-up. But the twist had changed the game. The Rusty trial now enters uncertain territory. What started as a near-certain conviction is now anyone's guess. As both sides scrambled to adapt to the new revelation, one thing was clear: this was no longer a simple case of guilt or innocence. It was something else entirely, a mystery still unraveling. The dust has settled. The headlines have faded. But for the town of Ridgewood, The trauma of what happened in that modest home on Willow Creek Drive continues to haunt every quiet street, every lingering shadow. 3 lives lost. 1 man arrested, but no one convicted. This is not the resolution the public expected or the justice the victims deserved. In November 2024, Russell Rusty was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for obstruction and fraud. The murder charges were dropped due to lack of direct evidence. A mistrial was declared. Despite the mountain of circumstantial suspicion, Russell walked out of that courtroom technically not a convicted murderer. He's eligible for parole in 2027. But that's little comfort to those who believe justice was never truly served. One of the most perplexing elements of the trial came near its end, a late discovery that changed the tone in the courtroom. DNA found under Melanie's fingernails did not match Russell, nor did it match any known family, friends, or neighbors. It belonged to an unidentified male, one whose presence in the home remains unexplained. That DNA could indicate a third party, maybe someone Russell didn't know, or maybe someone he did but won't admit. Ridgewood remains in mourning. Melanie was a beloved teacher. Ava, a gifted violinist. Mason, just 5 years old and full of joy. The community has struggled to understand how such a tragedy could unfold in their midst. Russell's mental state continues to raise questions. Was he simply overwhelmed, crushed under the weight of debt, guilt, and desperation? Or was he a manipulator orchestrating the perfect plan until it unraveled? So, who killed Melanie, Ava, and Mason? Was it Russell? Was it someone else, someone still out there? Was the life insurance motive real? Was Russell the fall guy in a far more complex, unseen tragedy? Russell Rusty sits in prison, convicted but not for murder. Melanie, Ava, and Mason lie buried, their graves marked by flowers, their names etched into stone. And the town of Ridgewood moves on, but never forgets. True crime stories often end with a verdict, a sentence, a name to blame, but not this one. This case leaves us in limbo in the gray space between guilt and innocence, truth and speculation, because sometimes the most terrifying thing is not knowing. If this case moved you, disturbed you, or left you with questions, you're not alone. Subscribe to the Crime Decoder for more real stories that demand answers. And don't forget to hit the bell icon because justice never sleeps.